think over the next 10, 15, 20 years, I think there's a more than negligible chance that China is going to break up into a few different regional powers because they don't have the geographical advantages that, the United States has. They're basically a bunch of little island nations inside of this really mountainous area. They don't have good, overland transportation between the different areas. They're really prosperous cities, are down on their southern coast, pretty far from, the capital, the political and military capital. They are dependent on energy resources from their far east that is next to all the stands, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, all the Afghanistan. And they have their own internal Muslim population that they are really brutally repressing. So they're not making a lot of friends over in the stands, although they do have some sort of pragmatic, of the moment business partners. But I think China's facing some problems that the United States doesn't have. The United States isn't even close to facing the problems that China has. I don't
Yeah,
see any reason or advantage for the U.S. military to invade China or to attack them, bomb them, send nuclear missiles. I think the best thing to do is going to pull back to our Pacific allies, which are all, in this chain of islands around outside of China, and just sit back and watch China sort of disintegrate and flail. And then if they get desperate and they try to, they try for a military solution, as you say, the U.S. has got, its Navy is bigger than the rest of the world put together. There is no challenging the U.S. Navy, even with their supersonic, carrier-busting cruise missiles.
yeah, and hey, I'm with you. I said 1 year, you said 10. Like, I don't really mean 1 year. This stuff, like Greer talks about, it happens over a longer period of time, right? It's not a movie. So I'm with you on that. And what you were telling me about China and everything you just said, all I hear is it's complex. And what do we know about complexity theory? Well, there's just that many more things where it can break. And then what's going to be the one? Right now, with the global supply chain as it is, I mean, this is how I see it. Okay, when I talk to business owners, I go, what is you got a business and it's a circle, and half of it is whatever your service or product is. The other half is running your business, right? So what is that other side of the coin? Well, it's keeping 16 plates all spinning at the same time, and it's an art form, right? All right, so you get that going, you got all those plates spinning. Now extrapolate that to all the companies all over and how they're all intertwined. With the oil shock, with what that did, I think it poked that global supply chain, and it's easy for me to say we don't have the resiliency built in. We just don't have the resiliency put in. And we've got it to the razor edge of profitability, just in time, all these different things. Even if our economy was good, there's no escaping this. That virus shutting everything down, it just knocked it all over. So, I mean, it's just complex. We just have complex structure after complex structure after complex structure. And it's a bullwhip, and it's just going all the way through it, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that sounds reasonable. And I think there's evidence every night on the news that this is what's going to be happening.
All right.
Also, and now that I think I just went on a rant for nothing. So
no, that's all right. Well, I was going to say one unfortunate. I mean, even when I was deep into the peak oil scene, there's good information to be gleaned there. There's some rock solid thinking that a lot of people, the world would be better off if more people understood the concept of energy returned on energy invested.
Yep.
But unfortunately, a guy named Joseph Tainter made a name in the peak oil scene with his book, The Collapse of Complex Societies or Complex Civilizations. And he's the one who really introduced the concept into the peak oil conversation that the more complexity you layer into a system, the more breaking points it has, and the more expensive it is to maintain those higher levels of organization. There's some truth to that, but really the thing you should understand when it comes to complex systems is the more complex and interconnected a system is, the more you get seemingly nonlinear behavior and counterintuitive outputs. Complex systems don't crash catastrophically because they don't tend to be brittle. It is simple, brittle systems that are either working or they're failed. The more complex a system is, the more potential states it has. And when it does fail, it tends to fail in weird ways, but it doesn't crash all the way to the bottom level of potential complexity. It collapses down to what is sustainable, which might not be that much of a drop, which is why John Michael Greer is talking about the cascading sort of catabolic collapse that takes place over these many stair-step, episodes over a long period of time. That makes sense to me, because every time, there is a new shock, which knocks out some of the supports in this structure, it is a very complex structure. It's going to collapse into a shape that almost nobody anticipated. And it's not going to be a total collapse. And there is going to be the opportunity to start to rebuild. And in some ways, things really will be hitting new highs. They'll be working better than ever in some ways. One thing I really appreciate, I'm always looking for the silver lining in our current situation. The obvious one is we are going to realize, that the more efficient you make a just-in-time delivery system, the more, the more sacrifice you make in terms of the resiliency of the system. So hopefully we're going to try to, source more, build more, get our resources locally here on the continent. And what a wealth of natural resources we have in the North American continent. We are better positioned to do that than just about anybody. It's just, we're going to have to sacrifice some profits from people who can afford to make that sacrifice, point blank. The people who just got trillions of dollars handed to them as the opening gesture in, hey, can we do something to help workers? They didn't need the money, but those are the folks that are going to have to take a haircut in order to bring manufacturing, bring raw resource production back to this country. And that has to be done. So that's wish number one. And that's sort of the obvious one. But I'm also hoping that, the longer this lockdown goes on, the more obvious it becomes that it isn't really required that everybody be doing everything they can to generate economic activity so that they can make money, so that they can buy food and, pay the rent. It's pretty clear that it takes a tiny fraction of the total potential working population to supply all of us with our basic needs. The more automation progresses, the more we're going to have to come to grips with that reality. But this virus is showing it to us right now. We don't need automated burger flipping robots to demonstrate to us that it doesn't take that many people to feed all of us. And the fact that all of us need money to pay rent and, to maintain our credit ratings and to buy various things, it's just not necessary that we're all be scurrying around like hamsters on a wheel all the time, trying to make as much money as possible. We would be better off, a lot of us, putzing around in our garden, learning about soil, studying things, playing chess. There's a lot better uses for a human mind than, being on a phone all day, harassing people, trying to collect debts. There's a lot of economic activity that we would be better off if it just went away. And nobody has to starve.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't disagree in theory on a lot of that stuff. But also, I've kind of, I don't know, I think it's my age. I had some health problems a few years ago. I don't know. I don't know if there's a right way or a wrong way with all this stuff. What you're talking about, I agree with you. A lot of it's annoying. I don't know. I think everything, I don't agree on that it takes so few of us to do this thing. And I think only time will tell on that. I think that we're stressing it out. But on the automation, and then on the people who didn't need the money were the first ones who got a lot of it. Listen, I listened to you and Jim, and I'm a complete agreement with you. If this reset happens, it's not going to make everyone square. The rich are going to get rich and the poor are going to suffer.
It's going to accelerate the process that was already underway, has been for a long time.
Absolutely. Okay, but I take a step back from that. And I take a step back from that and just think I'm a science teacher. And remember those stories they said where when you have a ton of rabbits, the hawks eat all the rabbits and reproduce until they get to be such a big number, there's no more rabbits anymore, then they have to die out and the rabbits come back, and it's always this kind of balance. I just think the human colony tipped past its keys. I just think we worldwide, we got too big. It was a hell of a thing we did. going down the highway in a Honda going 80 miles an hour, looking at a BMW from Germany and some other car from London, and me and this Japanese car just racing down. That was amazing what we did.
Hmm.
It's amazing. I'm impressed, even with all the pollution and even with all the just the silliness that we as humans are. You're right. Complex systems are what we're good at. I just think we just went a little too far. And then this thing happened, right? And even if the economy was good, because people are blaming the bad economy, even if like there was no tensions, this thing where we're at in time of history with what we've done, and the fact that we just didn't have the foresight, because no one's perfect, but we didn't have this foresight to put the resiliency in there. I don't see this as a conspiracy theory doomer thing anymore. I go, okay, this is what we did. Kind of, this is a pretty scientific, I think, model of what happened and what's going to happen. And yeah, we're going to have all different types of personalities doing all different types of things. And that's just humanity, and it's a show, and we get to watch it and hope for the best, right? And you want to talk about some positive things that's going on here? Okay, again, I'm kind of a Jordan Peterson fan. I am so thankful that he came out there and started preaching this idea of responsibility to all these young men. You know, they were soaking it up. All these 20-something year old men, great. Maybe they're the ones that shoulder the burden of what we're about to go through. Maybe they're the ones that whatever is emergent, they are the next wave. Because I look at a lot of the generations out there, and I don't see resiliency in their mindset and emotional state. I don't see resiliency and strength. I see a lot of victimhood stuff out there. I see a lot of laziness. I mean, we're the fattest country in the world. We're just the most obese. We're the richest. We had a little comeuppance that we're going to have to come down a little bit. And I'm okay with that because there's opportunity. Hey, you can do just as well in times of chaos as you can in good times. You're smart, you're capable. They did kind of hit the reset button. People like you and I, a lot of different people, hey, we know some things. Maybe it's time we start capitalizing on it, because plumbers are going to start doing very well. We're not going to need so many people who are good at Excel or programming. I just don't think we are. We're going to need some people who know how to do things. And hey, take it for what it is. I can tell you what I'm planning on, or what's going on in my mind, and some of the things that we're thinking about doing. Worm farms. We're 2 hours north of Dallas. All of a sudden, people want to start gardening because they need food, because the supply chain is still interrupted and they're not getting the amount they want to. Oh, and also they're like, hey, we don't want to depend on some government to bring it to us. Let's have a little bit source of our own food. Fertilizer, local fertilizer. Get local. And what does that mean? It means there is going to be a lot of customers trying to figure out what they need to survive. A lot of opportunity out there, and I'm encouraged by that. Now, how we as a society do it with the guns and the obesity and the Prozacs and all that kind of stuff, and the left versus right, there's a lot of people who are pissed off right now. Well, we're going to have to see how that all plays out. And it's just, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that it's going to be a bumpy ride. Now, how bumpy? Every city will be different. And who comes out of it well? I don't know. I think every mayor of any town should be going and saying, okay, where I'm at, there's a local butcher. Great. He's got, not only is he a butcher, he's a slaughter. So that's a really nice resource to have with a lot of cows around. Well, there were about 4 people that worked there. Okay, so, not insulting them, but who are they? Well, that wasn't a very highfalutin job that someone with a degree would have. And you don't see a lot of kids doing that. Well, I don't want any of those 4 people to work their ass off, run themselves down, get sick, and die. They have a skill set that we need. We should be identifying every skill set we need in a mayor of 15,000 and start putting interns. Go to the senior class. Which one of these people are capable? And then subsidizing all these essential businesses. And I'm not talking about liquor stores, right? I'm talking about, we should double up on people who do the water treatment. We should double up, right? That's where we need to be sitting there going, what's a good insurance policy? Well, gardens are a good insurance policy. Doubling up on butchers are a good insurance policy. Getting local. We got to get local. And if we do that, we'll get out of this better. If not, we're coming in for a rocky road. So it's going to be a rough landing.
You know, I live in rural Vermont, and there are various farms around, and all of the bigger farms import seasonal labor from Jamaica because the Jamaicans, they know how to work, they know how to do agricultural work, and they come over and they work their asses off for 6 or 8 months, and then they head back to Jamaica. You know, in Vermont, we have a brain drain problem. The ambitious young people, the smart young people, as soon as they graduate from high school, they're gone. You know, or if they go to college in state, as soon as they're out of college, they're gone. And you know, who's left? Well, there's a solid cohort of nail bangers around here. You know, guys with solid construction skills, you know, manual labor, a good work ethic. But we also have a lot of people, like we have a lot of heroin addicts around, and we have multi-generational people living on public assistance, you know, people who they've never known a situation where mom and dad lived together and dad had a job and paid the rent. I mean, that's as alien to their experience as going to Afghanistan is to mine.
Right.
Never served in the military. So yeah, I don't like to harp on this because it makes me sound like an arch conservative, but there are a lot of people who are absolutely unsuited just based on their life's experience to do anything for themselves, anything at all. And I agree with you. I mean, I'm not really in the Jordan Peterson demographic. I'm a little old for that, but I did buy his book for my son. I really appreciate that Jordan Peterson is like on college campuses. He's in the same arena as the social justice warriors who are preaching that, you know, anything that makes you the slightest bit uncomfortable is the equivalent of a war crime, you know, committed against you by the evil patriarchy. And, you know, life isn't like that. Life is uncomfortable. And if you are actually going to do something that you haven't done before, you're going to experience a period of, you know, just cognitive discomfort. That is a sign that you're working, that you're doing something. If you're comfortable all the time, you are, you know, you're degenerating. Yoga's
Yeah,
not
you don't do it.
comfortable.
No, you don't do any shadow work. I mean, that, and yoga is not comfortable. You're absolutely right. That's the whole point of it. When you get in an uncomfortable situation, you learn how to breathe.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what it is. Life is uncomfortable. Okay. So it was impressive what we did. It was impressive what we did. We got to a place that was so good that they had to come up with a term like microaggression.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got rid of all the big ones. And then that was the next thing. I mean, it was so ridiculous. I watched feminists, the people who were fighting the feminists were the trans rights activists. They had turned on themselves at that point. But where I'm at now and why I think that nonsense is already over is, hey man, 5 million people have already lost their job. Another 2 million are right around the corner, and then 2 million after that. Like, everyone's about to be a victim. So no one's going to care about all this silly nonsense. It's going to go away. And this cancel culture and all this other thing, like, these are positive of what's just happened. Because they're not just going to be on their phone, BuzzFeed, wasting time because they got nothing to do. It can't happen. So here, you know, you said it sounds like a starch Republican. I mean, hell, I'll be that guy. I'll be it. Living life, you're walking on a tightrope. Survival, I mean, get a job, get money, food. I mean, you still have to do it. But what was amazing about what we did was we had safety net after safety net after safety net. Just, we had it. Well, what happened? I don't even dislike Trump. I don't like him. I don't dislike him. He gave all the money to the corporations. He did. That's what happened. So now, if he's going to bail out everyone, including all these social programs, the money's not going to be worth anything, right? So that's not going to happen. He already chose. So all these people that you've identified in your town and that are everywhere who are completely incapable to handle anything, that wealth transfer just happened. It already happened. So that's coming down the pipe. And I don't see us handling that too well. So I'm looking at good news of there's opportunity, there's things you can do, but at the same time, The day the Russians and the Saudis had that oil war, oil market share, whatever they want to call it, and the oil price dropped, it sent that shockwave through the financial market, because now they can never value shale industry again. They have to price in that risk factor of it can have those shocks. It was just too big of our economy. It's just sending ripples throughout it. This is what happened. We literally, that was the day the world changed. So I'm no longer a doomer. I am, this is the new world, and the playout's going to be huge. And what do you do? Like, what is your plan? Do you have a plan yet?
Well, I was just in the process of moving to Puerto Rico when this lockdown put everything on hold.